Is the sky falling or are the Buffs just going over a hurdle? We're about to find out.
This is Voice of the Buffs, Mark Johnson, and you're listening to the Folsom Frenzy Podcast.
Welcome to the Folsom Frenzy Podcast. My name is Chase. I'm here with Topher and Sreyas, and we are recording after a punishing Houston loss. I actually, looking back at the score, I think the score is closer than the game actually was. I'm curious if you guys agree with me or not, but 36-20, wire-to-wire loss, it felt like. Got a little fun and flirty there at halftime, but just really never got going on either side of the ball. Just quickly looking at the statistics, the quarterback rating for Ryan Staub, worse than most people's ACT score, a 27.7 quarterback rating, 19 completions on 35 attempts, 204 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. On the rushing side, Simeon Price had a pretty good game, 5 carries, 51 yards, overall 23 carries, 96 yards, but that, of course, includes the sacks, 240 yards, or 204 yards, rather, which makes sense, total receiving. And we gave up 209 yards, coincidentally, in rushing to Houston, and 222 yards as well to Connor Wegman in the air. Fellas, initial thoughts, obviously a pretty ugly loss. Sreyas, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, it was very ugly. I think it was Jake who posted it from the pod account, but I think I would agree. This felt like same old CU that we're used to. This is like the years after the Rise season under McIntyre, and then the 1 year with Midnight Mel, and then also a couple of years with Carl Durrell. I mean, this was not obviously 2022 level. 2022 level was a whole different branch of football that we'd never want to see again. But yeah, it was just a team that was thoroughly dominated on both sides of the ball. They did, like you said, Chase, kind of hang in there a little bit at halftime, but they possessed the ball for about 30 seconds in the third quarter. I mean, you're just not going to win many games that way. And frankly, it is kind of wild that this was a 2-possession game, and I put that in the tightest air quotes possible. We got smoked. Now, there's been a lot of reaction about how good Houston is or how bad Houston is. I think a lot of people are speculating this could be before the season, we were all speculating this would be one of our easiest games, and hence the sky is falling. But Houston's defense did seem pretty good. And I guess as it pertains to that makes me very worried about our wide receivers' ability to get space. And it makes me even more concerned about our quarterback situation. Topher, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that was not fun. Left a really bad taste in our mouths. We went 4-14 on third down, and I think that stat is really telling about how our night went on offense. I only rewatched the first half. I couldn't subject myself to the full game, and what I noticed is our offense got put behind the sticks a lot, and their offense was on schedule every single time they had the ball. They would run things, and they'd just get 2 to 3 yards or maybe 4 to 5 every single time, and it's third and short or it's fourth and short, and there's nothing we could do about it. They knew it, and we knew it, and that was really, really demoralizing. And longtime Buffs fans, this is all too familiar, right? This feels very eerily similar, which is really disheartening because, when you bring in Prime, when you bring in all that energy with transfer portal and all that kind of stuff, you hope this type of stuff is behind you. And clearly it's not. Clearly there's something here that we are very badly missing on, just a bad loss. It just feels like deja vu. I'm so sick of losing like this. But moving on, let's focus a little bit individually. What did you think of the offense, Chase? Offense specifically.
Yeah, it's funny. So I was the one that tweeted it feels like we're still in the Carl Durrell era, and it's really hard to let go of hell because my dad texted me and said, this looks like a Carl Durrell team. And I sat back and I was like, wow, I mean, it really does. And what's funny enough is I watched this game at the same bar, and maybe I have to stop going there, but it's where the CU official Atlanta watch party happens, which anyone that's living in Atlanta, go to the Hudson Grill in Sandy Springs for the CU watch party. But it felt very much like the Nebraska game last year, where it feels like the offense just cannot convert a third down, cannot make a big play. They kept showing the statistic during the broadcast about how Staub had not completed a downfield pass of more than 10 yards. I think the entire game. I don't know if he ever ended up, or I guess that long touchdown pass, but for a long time there, he hadn't. And I think there's just a lot that is going wrong with the offense. And I know you guys are going to be very dour, and maybe I shouldn't have gone first, but I do think there was two bright spots that I really liked that I do think is worth mentioning. And that was Simeon Price played really well. Simeon Price ran hard. He got good distance. He had a long run of 38 yards where he just ran mean. And I think our offensive line actually played really well that game. I think their pass blocking was borderline elite, which is why it's so disappointing that we couldn't find a way to get moving on the passing game. But I sit here and watch this line, and I think Shedeur Sanders with this offensive line, I mean, the sky's the limit for this team, right? Because all we can talk about is how bad this offensive line was for the last few years. I thought they played pretty well. There was not a whole lot of pressure. There just wasn't anyone making plays. And the sacks that did happen felt like they were coverage sacks. And I get it. That's kind of Houston's scheme, and that's how they play. But, that was really disappointing. I think the elephant in the room is that we were all saying Staub should be the quarterback. And this is why we're not, I guess, college coaches. We're just a fun podcast for the fans. I don't know how I don't know what the answer is in the quarterback room moving forward, but it certainly is not Ryan Staub based off that performance. I think he's a great kid. I want him to succeed, but I don't think he has the it factor in some of these instances where we really needed it when we needed it. So I don't know. Like, I'm kind of waffling on that, but that was really ugly. It felt like it was mismanaged. I'm no longer on the Pat Shurmur train, but obviously Jake was the one who tweeted out, or I presume it was Jake that tweeted out, leave Pat Shurmur on the tarmac and don't tell what time the flight is or whatever. But a lot of people commented, and I agree actually in the comments, there's a lot of things going wrong with this offense other than just the play calling. And I'm not saying that the play calling is helping, but I think it's very easy to just point your fingers at Pat Shurmur because people are frustrated and have been for so long. I think there is a systemic issue with this offense. I mean, I can't put my finger on it. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are.
Yeah, some key drops by wide receivers. I remember the one that comes to mind is Joseph Williams. I think that was a third down too. It was backbreaking. And we've had big third down drops in the first two games as well. So this wide receiver group so far is really not blowing me away by any means. Like, I know Omarion was hurt against Delaware, and we had Sincere Brown make some big plays against Delaware, but what we've seen otherwise so far is very uninspiring against Power 4 competition, and it makes me very concerned. Now, you hit on a great point about the pass blocking. So you guys have seen the PFF grades. PFF has graded CU's pass blocking so far this year as the 10th in the nation. That hurts so much, knowing how badly we could have used it when we had our best passing quarterback in the history of our program last year, right? And that is so painful. It was so painful watching Staubby just with time. There was one particular play. I wish I could pinpoint when it was and go find it and show you guys again, just kind of like force feed this down your throat for suffering purposes. But Staub had 5 to 10 seconds, and he looked around in a circle. I could have sworn he did a 360 because he couldn't find anyone to throw to, and then he took a sack. That hurts so bad, man. That hurts so bad. I really hope that we can settle in on something at some point offensively. Maybe Caden Salter's the answer. Maybe it's just let Juju get his feet wet and go through the motions, the ups and downs of having a true freshman quarterback who's not even 18 yet starting. Even just saying that out loud seems like there's definitely some credence to that thought moving forward if this ends up being a lost season. But something has to change for sure. And we need something moving forward to convince us that this isn't just going to turn into the 2021 season where we did have a decent amount. We had some talent, certainly, And at the end of the season, they all bought out of the program and left us in such a dire strait that, I mean, could we have beaten anyone in 2022 other than Cal coming off of firing our coach? That was kind of a miracle win. So offensively, it was just disastrous and evokes all the worst thoughts that we've had as CU fans.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with our people that are saying there's a lot of stuff wrong with the offense. And you know what? The buck stops with Pat Shurmur. There's a lot of stuff wrong with the offense, and a lot of it comes back to Pat Shurmur. And if we're going to go back to Caden Salter, how do you go back to the guy that you handed his job to his backup? He didn't lose his job. You handed his job to someone else. He didn't do anything wrong. He played the exact way you asked him to play. How is he going to build trust with that offensive coordinator now? And when I look at it, the greatest common factor between Ryan Staub playing like crap and Caden Salter not playing up to his potential is Pat Shurmur's play calling. And if we look at both of those, their most explosive plays are the ones that were impromptu, where Pat Shurmur's did not have his hand in it. So I am out. I'm so out on Pat Shurmur, right? But I also think that this QB battle is a symptom, not the disease, right? There is a systemic coaching issue, and I want to call it out right now because we have no identity. Our quarterback play is terrible. Our run blocking is abysmal, and there's no growth week to week. And I think that's the part that's also super frustrating, is the fact that we don't see strides in us making identity. We don't see strides in being like, who is the guy, right? After week 1, we would have said, Micah is definitely the running back 1. He looked like the running back 1. We should feed him more. Now we're looking at Simeon Prince. We don't even know who's going to start at quarterback next week. Like, what are we doing? Pat Shurmur needs to take some accountability, and I want to vent the frustration of how out on Pat Shurmur I am. Is there anyone that stood out in a good way on offense other than the offensive line pass blocking?
Well, I think that's what I started with, right? Like, Simeon Price played well. I thought Omarion Miller had a pretty good game coming back, right? But yeah, I've been really disappointed with Sincere Brown, and I don't know. Some of these drops have been punishing. I know he had a good game, but I agree with you, Topher. I mean, I think I have a hard time believing that it's just the play calling, though. So I don't know. I hope you're right, and we make a play calling change. But if you remember, right, like, this is not the first time that Coach Prime has had an offensive coordinator where we went, oh, it must, where they were like, it must be him, and then made a change, and then nothing changed, right? So part of me wonders, how much of that is Prime system, how much is that Prime meddling? I don't know. And again, I'm not defending Pat Shurmur anymore. It's literally exhausting. I can't do it, even for a bit. But yeah, I think we can also move on. This is where I've been more critical, is on the defense. And a lot of Ryan Livingston fanboys, including Jake, who wasn't able to make it tonight. Robert. Sorry. Robert Livingston fanboys, including Jake, who I don't know, seem to still be standing by their guy. But it's pretty clear to me at this point that we do not have a player capable of defending the edge whatsoever, capable of spying a quarterback that is mobile whatsoever. And what was really challenging, even though they lost, right, watching the Tennessee-Georgia game this Saturday, watching Boo Carter absolutely shut down an entire half of the field from the run and knowing how close we were to getting him is really painful, because I don't necessarily think it's a scheme issue. I do think Robert Livingston needs to answer some questions, but I think we just don't have anyone who is talented enough to be, at linebacker to cover East-West. And maybe I'm alone on that, but it's incredibly frustrating to see that. And then, the other component is, Stephon Johnson. He's awesome, right? The wide receiver for Houston, 5 receptions, 117 yards. He's awesome. I think he's going to play on Sundays, right? But like Connor Wigman and Dean Connors ran for a collective 172 yards and 3 touchdowns. That can't happen, right? Like, that's what happens in the Big 12. We knew that going into the season. And for whatever reason, we're just completely incapable of stopping it. And last thing I'll say before I let you guys go, but I'm incredibly frustrated of how many times I've watched us on 4th and 1 not absolutely crash the A gaps in an obvious direct up the gut running situation. And that is a scheme issue. And I don't know what's going on with that, but it's just these small things where on 3rd and 1, we can't convert, but they can, right? consistently across the entire season. And I think, that's starting to make me think, maybe we're just not having the talent that we thought we did, especially on the D-line. And I know I've been pretty dour this whole season. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are.
Yeah, I think linebacker situation is terrifying. So Martavius French, I think, he came from UTSA, had a great season at UTSA last year. Boy, is he struggling. Oh, my goodness. Like, he did have the 2 fumble recoveries against Georgia Tech, but
Gifted to him.
He didn't create those opportunities, and he seems to have a lot of struggles, to say the least, defending the run. He's just flat out not fast enough to play at this level. He reminds me of some of Mike McIntyre's linebackers. Obviously, we had one very magical season, and that was our defense was built off of our DBs, which all of them, I think, pretty much got at least a cup of coffee in the NFL, if not still in the NFL. Akella Witherspoon and Chido Awuzie are still in the NFL. And then we had some decent linemen, Josh Tupou, who's still in the league, Jimmy Gilbert, who is a pass rushing fiend, Kenny Olabode, who we had on the pod a couple of years ago. He was I guess he was a linebacker, but still, he was probably our best linebacker that season. So
was Nate Landman not on that team?
No, I don't think he was.
Nate
I think
Landman was after.
All right.
Yeah. So his freshman year was 2017. So Nate Landman was our guy. We don't have a Nate Landman right now. We don't have a Levante Bentley right now. We don't have a Nakai Hill-Green right now. That is terrifying. And I feel like even those guys weren't enough last year to get across, to get over the hump against those big physical teams that we played, like Nebraska. Unfortunately, Kansas, right? Kansas was kind of one of those teams that started off the season slow, but was much more talented than their final record. And then BYU, who flat out destroyed us. And this is just going to keep happening. I don't see any other way around it. Like, we're going to continue to play these teams that have mobile quarterbacks. When we play Utah, when we play Kansas State at the end of the season, even though they've started off poorly. Arizona, Noah Fifita can run a little bit. I mean, it's really, really scary to see where things are headed unless something major changes that no one's expected so far. And it's hard as a CU fan, having seen this before and not immediately having like all these flashbacks to what we had to deal with. And we're going to need to see it. I think one of you guys said it might have been Chase in the last pod. Like, I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it. And right now I just don't believe.
There's no reason to. There's no reason to. And when you think about it, like, I'm a basketball coach, and we got pressed every single game because, my point guard is the only one that could handle the ball. If he passed the ball, it was a turnover. So I told the boys, I'm like, we have to figure out how to beat this press, or we're going to get pressed every game. We're probably going to get pressed every game regardless. And from here on out, I expect QB runs every game because we have not shown any ability to stop it.
Undisciplined too, don't they, Topher? It's terrible. Not even just untalented. It's undisciplined, it's out of position, and slow. It's the worst combination.
In this game, there was also like an indifference to tackling is the best way I can describe it, right? It's like we made contact, but like it was not to bring him down. It was just to make contact, or we make contact with our head on the wrong side, or just be like, oh, my bicep is definitely strong enough to stop this running back running at full speed. No chance. And it's all of those things are very concerning. And like you said, we don't have a Nate Landman, which is particularly tough. I'm a Rams fan, so being able to cheer for Nate Landman on Sundays is the best thing ever. And not having someone like that to cheer for on Saturdays and or Fridays sucks. But Livingston needs to really change some things about this defense, and quickly, or we need to fire Pat Shurmur and just try to get in the shootout with every team that we're going to play. Now, one silver lining that I will say is we forced Houston to kick 6 field goals. If that is not the definition of a bend, don't break defense, I don't know what is. So once again, as much and as frustrating as it is to watch the defense, I am still firmly placing a lot of the struggle on our offensive efficiency. I think if we have just a couple more drives that are a little bit more sustained, that defense comes out of there going, okay, we definitely missed tackles. We definitely missed assignments. But when it mattered, we buckled down and we held them to field goals. So if we just have an offense that can match that and get a couple touchdowns, I think the defense will be okay.
Yeah, I don't disagree. That's a great point that you made, because our offense forced our defense to spend infinite amount of time on the field, especially in the third quarter, literally infinite amount of time. That was completely unacceptable and absurd, right? Now, of course, the major reason why they spent all that time in the field was the fact that they couldn't stop the run and that Houston could get chunk plays and pick up first downs whenever they wanted. But the possession, I think they only had one possession, but it was a 3-and-out, and they just gave the ball right back to Houston, and Houston just did what they did. Just think about what 1 or 2 good drives could do to change the momentum, if nothing else. And we just didn't get that. So maybe to Topher's point, it's just one spark. It's amazing how that works, right? Just like one little spark. And what's terrifying is if we had a Shedeur or a Travis Hunter on this team, I could see that spark being right in front of us. Obviously 2023, we had Shedeur and Travis, but we also had, a complete massive mega rebuild. Like, the situation then was as bad as it gets, right? It's almost like what UCLA is dealing with now. But with where we're at now, it really feels like that shouldn't be the case. So we'll see.
Yeah, and my concern is, I get it, bend don't break, and that was great, right? Like, you find a way to stop them, but the entire game, and Houston had no shortage of possessions. You had 2 stops the entire game where they didn't at least try to attempt a field goal.
Just like
right?
Kansas.
They missed one, right?
It's literally just like Kansas last year.
I think on the defensive side, we don't have a guy. Like, we don't have the guy to be back there. And we talked about this. I think you guys talked about this. I wasn't able to make that pod. But when we talked to Dukes, right, like, we didn't even know who was going to wear the green dot. And someone's got to step up and be the guy and say, you know what, enough. Like, I'm tired of getting punched in the mouth. And, like, this is where we make our stand, right? Because Robert Livingston is not exactly, whether he's brilliant or not, he's not exactly the kind of guy that's going to get you fired up and say, this is the place where we make our stand, right? I don't get that vibe from him. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't know. Like, maybe it's Feneseth. As far as a lunch pail guy goes, he certainly qualifies, right? But, like, someone's got to step up and say enough is enough. But I agree. Yeah, I was on the offensive side. Topher was on the defensive side. But I understand, it's important to have sustained drives, right? Because otherwise your defense is absolutely gassed. But, the defense is not helping itself out, especially, when it's getting run all over. So a lot of issues for this game. I don't necessarily see this improving as we go on, which is, I think, why we're so dour. And I wish I could be more optimistic. But I'm curious.
You love that word, Chase. That's like the 5th
dour.
time I've heard you use it on this pod.
Well, it's a dour episode. Maybe I'll make the episode title that. But I hate to say it, Topher, your 11-1 predictions looking incredibly hard to hit.
It's actually over.
Yeah, that's
I don't want to say that it's impossible, but I would be a little worried about that. But I'm curious, as far as not what necessarily what you guys think will happen next week, but if you were coach for a day, who's starting at quarterback for you next week? Maybe we'll talk about special teams after that. But in my mind, you got to have a guy, and part of me thinks that maybe that's who you have at quarterback right now. Part of me wonders that, maybe Salter's kind of disconnected at this point, take his $1 million in NIL and go sell cars after this. I don't know. Honestly, I think I'd probably start Salter next week. I think Juju's just not big enough and not old enough to get the job done. But if you were king for the day, Topher, who you got? QB1.
Caden Salter's my QB1, and I go to him and I go, Pat Shurmur's fired, right? Who do you want calling plays for you of these coaches, right? Like, I'll give you your choice of who's going to call plays, right? You're going to have a long leash. We're going to win this game, right? And I want you to play calm. I want you to play under control, right? You have a new guy that's going to be calling plays for you, and I think that's going to be the most important. You have to get a clean slate. And that's the other part that's so frustrating about how this whole thing was handled, is because of how it was handled, that we have to make a big move now to get a clean slate. And that is either starting Juju or firing Pat Shermer. So for me, I look at that, or both, right? I'm not saying those are mutually exclusive, but for me, the first move is firing Pat Shermer and starting Caden Salter again.
Yeah, this is quietly a challenging game. Wyoming isn't the complete rollover team from last year. I know Chase pointed that out in the last pod, and this is a team that this is a game we have to win if bowl eligibility is concerned. But they played Utah pretty tough, and some of it was the bend but don't break stuff especially in the first half. It was 3-0 at halftime in that Utah Wyoming game this past weekend. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. And Wyoming is full of something like four or something.
Yeah, that's not going to happen to us. That's not going to happen to us. We're fine.
I love that. So I don't think that this is a game where you just throw Juju out there to the Wolves and let him figure it out. I don't think this is the one. I think that this one there's too much negativity surrounding this if we approach it that way and we end up getting pie in our face. Utah, we don't know how good Utah is, to be fair, because their only real win before this was UCLA, and UCLA might be historically bad. They might be
without a head coach. They're without a head coach.
They might be the 2022 Buffs.
Arguably could be worse. Like they could end up 0-12. I don't know. It would be interesting to see those two match up. The 2022 CU team and the 2025 UCLA Bruins. So we don't know how good they are, but we know that Utah always has a pretty stout trenches, like on both sides. I was about to say offensive line, but really it's on both sides. And Wyoming hung in there. And so, with how we played this past weekend, right, it's not inspiring. So I don't think it's a game that you can afford to do what you did against Delaware. Because now I think we all see, okay, if we're trying to actually get bowl eligible, we really, really need this one. And frankly, if something goes off in conference play and you have the opportunity to get Juju in, that's fine. But with this one, I think you got to take it seriously. So, yeah, kind of scary.
And I hope, one way or another, we know who the guy is moving forward, because when we go to play BYU at home, it's got to be figured out, in my opinion. So, I don't even, at this point, I don't really care who it is, as long as we have an answer in some form or another. But with that, we'll go ahead and move into our QWealth Management Player of the Game. Go to qwealthmanagement.com to learn more for all your financial advising needs, and perhaps talk to someone like Topher, who knows a lot about the Buffs. Players of the game this week: offense, Simeon Price, I think really stepped up this week. I don't think that should be overshadowed. Topher didn't even remember his name, so that was a little concerning. I think he called him Prince or whatever, but really good game. And I kind of disagree as far as Michael Welch was supposed to be the guy. I think whoever wants to step up, if you get the opportunity, I was really impressed. I thought he ran really hard, and that's not a dig on Micah at all. On defense, Byard had a phenomenal game, like truly phenomenal game. I think he was everywhere in that game, and again, like we should.
He might be the guy going forward. He might be the green dot.
He might be the guy. Yeah, I mean, he really was everywhere. 14 tackles, 8 solos, half a credit sack. I thought he played really well in that game, and so he definitely deserves his flowers there. Special teams was kind of hard to pick. Our go-to mate 2 just had a horrible punt about halfway through the game, and certainly he had plenty of opportunities to punt. So we'll go ahead and give it to Quentin Gibson, which I have a hard time getting behind because I really wish we would stop returning as frequently as we do, and maybe we can segment this into our special teams conversation. But it drives me crazy how many times we try to return the ball, and he did well. I think, what did he average? He had a return for 40, but I think if you can get the guaranteed 25 and your offense is absolutely in hell trying to move the ball forward, risking and potentially starting on the 14 is just immediately going to kill any chance you have
I think there's only one that he probably shouldn't have returned. Most of I think Houston kind of challenged him into returning those. There's one that was kind of deep in the end zone. He's shown some wiggle and some burst. I think that was what Topher and I predicated the pick on. So we think that he showed something to where at some point in the season he could be a major factor and help us flip the field a little bit and get some points on the board right after we give up a score or coming out at halftime. But yeah, to your point though, there was at least one or two where I was watching it with Jake and Grant and said, "Oh no, don't take it out." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then he got it back to at least the 24 or 25-yard line. Like, okay.
I'm concerned because Topher's body language is making me think that he's going to be a big fanboy of returning the kicks, which is just statistically, it will have our math in turn.
I just think it's so funny coming from you of all people. The one that will call me about parlays and sports betting, about not taking the risk. Are you kidding me? Quentin Gibson is a guy that's like a plus 200 any given game to score a touchdown. Yeah, let him return it. He has not shown, and we have not shown poor blocking to the point where I think he's going to get tackled before the 20-yard line. I think he's fast enough to get to the 20 every single time. And with that, I give him the green light. Let him run it. Every chance we get, let him run it. Because that is a momentum shifting type of game. Type of moment, and God, does our defense need that?
Yeah,
it'd be funny. It'd be cool to see some punt returns at some point. It's just we don't give up punts.
And if your defense is truly gassed, and the only time you're successful moving the ball is a kick return, boy, are they going to really be gassed when they have to run back out there immediately after a big stand. But
so true.
I maybe you've convinced me. I don't know. I think generally speaking, it's just unwise, but. A little bit of a shorter episode because I guess we didn't have Jake talking about how much he hates Pat Shurmur for 20 minutes. But I think we're ready to move on to our preview. We already kind of touched on Wyoming coming up, and our episodes after we lose it are never quite as long. But Wyoming coming into Boulder, always kind of a fun game. It's also family weekend, so it should be a really good crowd, even though it's not a super exciting opponent. Buffs are minus 13.5 favorites as of now, over under 44.5 points. I think that's a really interesting line, but earlier before we started recording, I said that I really wasn't sure what I was going to say for this prediction. But the more I think about it, the more I think the Buffs are going to take it out on Wyoming and take out some frustration in the same way that they ultimately did against Delaware. And I do want to make one quick point that I forgot to make earlier, but Georgia Tech went and beat Clemson this past weekend. Delaware beat UConn, right? And Houston might not be as bad as we fear. So generally speaking, I think the sky is falling a little bit, but I don't think the sky has completely fallen 100%. And I think this team's going to find a way to bounce back and find a way to get going. I don't know if it'll be in the first half or in the second half, but I really want to see the defense step it up this week. So that over under at 44.5, I'm going to take the under on that. And I think the Buffs cover minus 13.5. Topher, what you got?
Yeah, I'm not as optimistic as you are, clearly, because yes, Georgia Tech definitely beat Clemson and they look good. But if we play Georgia Tech right now, they will boat race us. They would boat race us, and they should have boat raced us on that Friday night. We had 3 turnovers and we still lost the game. So I think that's just tough to look at, and I think for me the sky is falling a little bit, right? Like. You look at the pattern of clock management, how we handled this QB situation, right? This is the first time Coach Prime is coaching where Shador is not his QB1. This is the first time he's had a quarterback battle, and he is handling it very poorly, in my opinion, right? So how we handle the quarterback situation and how the fundamentals of our defense continue to show regression rather than progression makes me very worried. I think we do beat Wyoming. I don't think Wyoming's at a point where they could quite compete at that the Power 5 level, just the depth of talent. But I don't think we cover. And I think it's going to be a high-scoring one. Might even be in overtime because it's an 8 o'clock kickoff in Boulder. So give me the Buffs 49-42 final.
Whoa. Wow. That would be too much for my heart to handle.
In this situation, we fire Pat Shurmur, Caden Salter starts, and we figure it out.
So we would have needed to fire Pat Shurmur to get to 49 points. I was going to say, so I'm definitely, I agree with you that I don't think we cover. I agree that I think we'll win. And I also agree with Chase that I think it's going to be an under. I think Wyoming so far this season just looking at their performances, they shut out Akron. They gave up 7 points to Northern Iowa, and they held Utah to 3 points in the first half, albeit with a bunch of missed field goals. But at the same time, these were not short field goals. These were 45-yard. Every single one of these field goals was 43, 45, 45, 46.
Modern range.
It's right at the edge.
We live life on the edge. I would bet my life on Mata.
Oh, look at you. Look at this complete flip from last year. I love this, Topher. Either way, I don't think Wyoming's defense is that bad. And I think we're in for a grind and in for a dogfight here. I don't think that this is going to be settled until the very end, unfortunately. And it's going to be nerve-wracking. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. I hope that we come out and, like Chase said, just take it out. Absolutely take it out. And come out and show us, okay, yeah, we're ready for real Big 12 play. Like whatever happened in Houston, that was just flush it out, get it out of the way early in the season, and a completely new team that's rejuvenated is going to come out and try to go to the Big 12 championship game. But I'll see it when I believe it. 17-14 Buffs.
Wow, I should have gone last because you guys are, as one might say, dour with your predictions. One fun prediction I wanted to make as well. I think Bayard gets a pick 6 in this game. I think Wyoming's quarterback is a little fast and loose with the football, and Bayard gets a pick 6 in this game, gets the green dot, and Colorado never loses a football game ever again. So how is that for an optimistic viewpoint? But with that being said, quick and easy episode this week. We have to bring up,
Jake did want to say he thinks that Staub will start against Wyoming. Staub is his starter. He thinks that K-Salt did something to piss off the coaches, and people were saying that his body language the last 2 games has not been great. He also believes that we will see all 3 quarterbacks this weekend. I tend to disagree. I think there's going to be one guy, and we're going to ride with him.
I think this is far less of a game that you mess around with. I mean, I'm not saying Jake is wrong. I could easily see us playing 3 quarterbacks. I would be much more concerned about the QB by committee thing going into this game because of the implications, right? Delaware, it's one thing. First-year FBS program. And, again, they did beat UConn. And UConn's obviously not one of the better FBS teams either. And didn't they actually move down to FCS at some point and then move back up? So that's almost on the same footing as Delaware. But nevertheless, that's an okay game. That's like an NFL preseason game where you go out, see who kind of separates themselves. Staub did separate himself. Let's not whitewash history. Like that is what Staub did. Staub balled out against Delaware. He was amazing. And going into this conference matchup, seeing the way that Staub was playing and seeing some of the questionable decision making that Caden had made, where there are obvious running opportunities to go get a first down and he'd stop and then just sail it over a wide receiver's head. Like that's nerve-wracking. And so continue to gather data. We're at the point now where we're questioning whether that one particular amazing game from Staub was just because we're playing Delaware. So with that in mind, you put the quarterback out there that gives you your best chance to win this week, and you let them play the whole game and don't put in a rotation. You don't mess around with this. Like if we lose this game, then some really, really nasty things are on the table. So yeah, we need to win this one. And I hope that the coaching staff puts out the best team that they can in order to give us that opportunity.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
All right, now I'll go ahead and close it out. Thank you everyone for watching. As always, please give us a follow on X, Instagram, YouTube. Apparently we don't have a TikTok, but we do have a Substack, and Topher will be putting a link for that in the link on YouTube, or in the description on YouTube as well. But until next episode, go Buffs, beat Wyoming, and hopefully it's a big one. Sco Buffs.
Sco Buffs, baby. Come on.
Sco Buffs.